What's going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, Leo King, and welcome to Deep Astrology, your weekly astrology forecast for the week of August 26th through September the 1st of 2020. Make sure you say rabbit, rabbit on that September 1st. We are here at highvibe.tv, so make sure that you check us out on the links down below or our website, highvibe.tv, to get exclusive access to, of course, this show, which is normally 100%. You get the whole show, but tonight is a special event. We have the Peace Dealer in the house, who is going to be part of Deep Astrology on the chart portion, and we are giving this to our YouTube audience and everybody in, of course, High Vibe, for everybody, especially to get the insight of both of us together. But normally, this show is exclusive to highvibe.tv. Of course, you do watch it on YouTube recorded, and when it gets to the charts, it goes to the audio. Tonight, you're going to get the full visual, and you're going to get the one and only Peace Dealer to go through and look at some of these charts with me. But check out highvibe.tv as well for Battle of the Gods. I'm sure that, you know, I've been saying this Mars square Saturn would really kick it off more intensely, and we've been seeing a lot of harsh energy out there. Want to give my prayers out there for everybody that's being affected through all the civil rights violence that's going on, all of this hurricane energy that's going on. And this is definitely a time for us all to remember that we are all human beings and we all have to have empathy and compassion for one another, and truly want to just spread from high vibes energy and from my own just that energy of positivity, and that I know that all of us as human beings and as a collective always can find our center back to our true nature and our true selves, and that we all have the power to make the changes to make this earth and this world and this universe a much better place. And you know, the more that you take a look at all the crazy events of just 2020 alone and the buildup over the last couple thousand years, it's almost like, in many ways, I know it can seem scary at times or it can look really crazy, but it's usually moments like these that make the most impacting change of our lives for the better. And unfortunately, there's people on the wrong side of all that, but in many cases, we all, with Chiron and Aries, definitely have a lot of things that we all are having to deal with that are difficult right now. So we are all in this all together. And I just want to let you all know that we all have the courage and have the strength and have the determination within us as a collective to come stronger through everything. Now, this is a week in where we have a full moon that will be building up through this whole week, because when we come to Tuesday on September 1st, it will be a full moon in Pisces. And so to talk already about mutable energy of being in Virgo, with Mercury in Virgo, and of course, having the North and the South Node in mutable signs like Gemini, North Node, and South Node in Sag, this is very changeable times. I always like to say mutable energy is like the carnival or the circus, because it could feel so ever-changing. It definitely brings up the energy like a hurricane, unfortunately, like we're seeing, because when you get this much energy and mutability, it is the energy that comes at the end, and it comes with change, because after we go through the cardinal, take action into a direction, the fixed to hold it, and then the landing of change to change the fixed and the defined things of life, all of us are a little bit in a, I wouldn't even say a little, are in a confusing space right now with Mars that's been squaring Saturn. Which direction am I really taking in my destiny? Do I want to take on things with all my energy if it feels like it's too heavy? Remember, Saturn is in its essential dignity, and so is Mars in Aries. So with Saturn in Capricorn, Mars in Aries, this is definitely a time where it's like you can't push forward with things that are too heavy in our life. It's not going to happen. Saturn is the lead that is this heavy weight, but it also is planning and making sure, did you plan for this? Are you just going to go do something without having all the plans? Saturn pays those off that have systems in check, that have already been structurally tested, especially at these last degrees of Capricorn. And Mars here at the last degrees of Aries before it's about to stop and go retrograde here, September 9th into the 10th. We have to remember that Mars in Aries also triumphs when it has grit and determination and the ability to push forward. But this can be strangulation for many people in many ways, because it can feel like, I don't know if I have the energy to do it, or I don't have the plans, or I don't have the direction. And with this Virgo energy trying to clean things up, figure things out, make changes in our reality, it is the small changes that we have to focus on to make. It seems like it needs to be this major, huge change with the South Node in Sag, but with the North Node in Gemini and with all this energy in Virgo, we have to remember that this is actually about the more minor changes. They're very simple things, and little things over a period of time create big change. And I think if we keep focusing on one major event in your life is going to change everything, or one moment will change all of it, it won't be that. It will leave us actually more hopeless, because with the South Node in Sag, it's difficult. Because this is not a time for us to put ourselves in a belief system or to just believe that one day, soon enough, it will change. We have to focus on the now in Virgo. We have to focus on the now in Gemini, of the facts and the things that are in our current environment, and how that we can actually figure things out through a conversation. We can figure things out through a simple change. And it's simple changes right now that we all have to focus on. And it's simple things that we need to focus on in our life. If we're trying to put way too much on our plate at this moment, especially with Mars that's squaring Saturn here for an extended period of time, as both are stationing and both are getting ready to change directions here as we come into this September, I'm just reminding people that this is not a time for, you focusing on just the most biggest rocket ship that will just change your life. It's preset rocket ships that you've been working on for a long time that already have the trajectory. But if you're starting from a place of nothing and you're trying to go to everywhere in the universe at once, definitely going to be a little hard. Now, we got to talk about Venus, of course, because Venus is in Cancer, and it just made the opposition to Jupiter retrograde, which, unfortunately, another week of Jupiter retrograde. It feels like, as an astrologer, every year you just watch Jupiter come direct in the month that followed the year prior. I remember reporting on Jupiter coming direct when it was, in the spring, or when it was just exiting the winter. Now here I am talking over half of the summer over in the last third of the summer, and Jupiter's still retrograde. So this is hard, of course, because Jupiter retrograde in Capricorn is not having a good time. And with the South Node in Sag, it doesn't help it. So the energy of hope and optimism and that easy doors are opened right now is not that it's not there, it's harder to find, or it's only within reach if it truly is in your destined place or preset positions that you had been planning for a long time. That the only fortune of Jupiter in Capricorn is for those that have planned, those that have structure, those that have implemented it and have proved it in many ways. And so this is a time with Venus that wants to feel the physical realm, that it always does, but in Cancer, it wants to feel literally the physical realm, whether it's money, a relationship, a project, and it's in hard oppositions here to Pluto this week and to Saturn. Now, Pluto and Saturn, of course, met on January 12th of 2020, and this has been a major transformation that we have seen to start this whole 2020. And yes, I will remind you that this energy will be in effect for 30 plus years, close to about 37 years till we see the Saturn Pluto in Pisces, which will be a long time away. Remember that Saturn and Pluto met in 82 and 83 in Libra, and it wasn't until January 12th that we saw the meeting again, and it happened to be in Capricorn, the home sign for Saturn. So this one's much more tough. This one's much more intense. And so with Venus opposing these two planets, this definitely brings up the things in life that we want to change to feel better, but the change has to deal with making choices. Maybe some choices that are about cutting away, because Capricorn is about conserving energy, the energy of only what is necessary to get you to the end goal, to the end result. And Venus in Cancer wants to just, can I get 4 extra things of 12 packs of Sprite? Can I get 4 extra things of Sour Patch Kids? Do you really need that much? You know what I mean? Is what Capricorn's trying to say. And with Saturn there in opposition to Venus, when it comes to our relationships, or it comes to the things that we definitely feel that we need or we want or we desire to make us feel better in our life, we have to make sure, is this on the path that really is worthy of taking on certain things? So this is a time for you where this is about shedding the things that actually maybe you're holding on to that really are not part of your life anymore, or don't even resonate with your life anymore. What are you abundantly trying to hold on to that is not panning out? A lot of things that are not panning out right now are easy to just Virgo it, just clean it up and throw it away, or just rearrange things. And this is not a time where we can believe in just fixing something that's broken, especially when it comes to relationships, especially because you're emotionally hung on to it. Saturn rules over this Venus in Cancer in opposition. And so we have to remember that no matter how much Venus and Saturn might have their issues, of course, as one being the ultimate malefic and the other being a lower benefic, we have to remember that that's a hard aspect. Venus is the feminine energy. It is the goddess, and she is the morning star right now in Cancer. And she's having some difficulties here. She's getting ready to square over to Mars on the week that's going to come next. She's got to go through the Jupiter that she just went through. Now she's got to go through Pluto and Saturn and then Mars, right? This is a lot. And this is a lot when it comes to, can we just feel good overall? With Jupiter retrograde still, only doing 2 minutes a day. It's pretty much dead stop because here in September, Jupiter finally does come direct. And there is something positive when Jupiter does come direct about finally some sort of door opens or the trumpet of the angel horn starts to bellow out from the back of the universe somehow. But we have to remember that this is not happening this week. And it's going to happen with hard aspects from Venus in opposition to Saturn and Pluto. And Saturn and Pluto are being reminded into our physical nature of our partnerships, our money situations, and especially deeply about the things that make us feel comfortable. That it's going to take us risk. The risk of letting go of something that no longer serves us emotionally in order to replace that with the risk of what we hope for, or if I would like to say better, since we can't just hope, but it's the risk in knowing, in a deep factual understanding and a curiosity of willing to go into curiosity with the North Node in Gemini to understand if it is hopeful or not. That will bring us more positivity, but we can no longer keep like a crutch, keep going to the same thing that's not bringing us anything and expect it to just change, to just show up with something. There's an emptiness in the universe right now and spaces that the universe is asking for us to take a deeper look from an adult point of view and make those changes. I also want to remind people that at the same token, we have Mars here, which is sextiling the North Node in Gemini. And there is something to say with Mars trining this South Node, that this is a very great time for you to go into the curiosities of your life. With Saturn also that's been in quincunx to the North Node, there is some weird elements that we do have to take risk in order to find the excitement of life that will also, with Venus in opposition to Saturn and Venus opposition to Pluto, that is like, in order for us to really go into the feeling of good, there is that feeling of the new story. And I'm saying that because Saturn and Pluto are trying to kickstart a new world and a new paradigm with exiting a lot of the old. And so this confronts us with where our emotions are still tied to deep parts of ourself, with Mars sextile the North Node and Mars trying the South Node of, why do we keep hoping that the past is going to come back? The Mayans talked about the end of the world in 2012, and they were right. The end of the world that you remember, if you try to continue to bring that back, good luck, especially as it's at the galactic center. But with Mars trining the galactic center, even though the South Node there, we need to focus on this North Node in Gemini. And we need to do this by going, you know what? Let me go into the curiosity of what's exciting, what's youthful. Gemini is youthful. Aries is youthful. And this is about the youthful energy within yourself while we're dealing with energies that feel old. You can just watch that the two contenders for president are old as fuck. That we have to remember that we have to bring our own youth in ourselves back here and not rely so much on the political nature to change our lives so much, because we got to remember at the same token that Mars square all this Capricorn, and with Venus opposing all this Capricorn, is do you think that your strength and do you think that your will to feel good is going to come through government at this moment right now? You'd be crazy. Especially from two old people, when you want to have excitement, youth, fun, and love, and emotion, and you're not going to get it from either of them. Or any of those two party systems right now. Or in your country, if you're not American, you're not going to see it through any of that paradigm. That it's within yourself and with Virgo to be the one that does go and harvest. To harvest the life, to harvest the wheat, the purity that you want to feel in your life. And with Mercury opposite Neptune, yes, it could be confusing, but it's a mere reflection of what you see out in your dreams, what you see in the vision that you want to see, and whether or not that you can figure out how to implement that by harvesting that and creating that in your life. But it takes hard work in Virgo. Virgo is a sign that you have to go out and you have to reap your own harvest of what you have planted and grown when you defined it in Aries. And that's what the Farmer's Almanac is all about in the zodiac, and that's actually how the zodiac works. That Virgo represents the sixth house. It represents our health, our day-to-day routine, but what it represents the most is our work to harvest the life that we want to have. And with Mars and Aries, it's our individuality. And with Mercury making great trines this week to Jupiter and to great trines over to Pluto, and even it's going to get ready here to make trines over to Saturn, that in order for us to make the great change into our world, it's the hard work that we do when we can take control of our choices in our life that are best for us in the long run, and that we don't get distracted by the choices that government or people that are in power that we seem to delusionalize in ourselves that are making choices about our life, when every day you're the one that still has the choice to make all the decisions in yourself and just harvest the great life that you want to create. Yes, I know there are tons of people that write me all the time about how the world's closed down and they wish they could go travel, or they want to go to Bali, or they want to go to here. It is a South Node in Sag. Get comfortable with your own environment. Create your own world. I'm sitting in a world that a bunch of us are at High Vibe created, and the people that subscribe to High Vibe have all created, where we come into our own worlds. We create our own worlds in this time. This is not a time that a plane that's going to take you thousands of miles away is going to be your ultimate thing. Especially Sag doesn't want to have the restrictions of having to go through the craziness of the airports in today and the fear that's around. It's a positive energy. But with the South Node here, when it comes to schools, universities, when it comes to travel, and when it comes to belief systems or religious beliefs, they could be overblown. They could also be underestimated in the hopefulness, because not underestimated that it will be hopeful, underestimating how it will not show us the hopefulness that we want. That it's our youth, it's our enthusiasm right now that will get us through, but it's also about realizing that the most beautiful things in life with this Venus opposition of Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, while Mars is in great aspect with the North Node, while the Sun's here in Virgo, that it's really on a full moon in Pisces, that we need to remember that it's the dreams that we bring into this reality, into the moment, that the moment that you have right here, that the environment that you have within your reach. With North Node in Gemini, there might be travel, but it's short travel. It's a quick flight. It's a drive. It's on your bicycle. It's walking. It's within that distance. It's not a journey. It's not international. It's within your own borders of your life. It's within your own spectrum of your environment, and you must focus on these changes in these places. The more that you yearn with a full moon in Pisces for the dream to become true, there is the essence that, remember that with Neptune being in Pisces, and Pisces, what it represents is the outpost of the universe. It's the outpost for the sun, to channel the energy to warn the sun when comets come in, or when asteroids come in, or foreign invaders from other planets, that we tap into our intuition, and that sends that energy to the sun. But that is our soul energy. It is our intuitive energies. It is our dreams. And it is the fascination that we bring to this day-to-day reality. Because even though I love Virgo for its hard work and its beauty through its total surrender to identity or even ego, by just showing that its purity is of the human that does show up to be its best and to do the work, it's nice to bring some Pisces into the picture. It's nice to have a vision, to have some dreams, to bring some compassion, and to bring some happiness. This is why Jupiter and Venus, the two benefics, are loving of Pisces, and that's why they do not enjoy their time in Virgo. So not only with the Sun and Mercury in Virgo is it a time where it could feel very plain, and with Jupiter retrograde and a South Node in Sag, very plain. It's whether or not you know how to tap into your imagination and turn a plain thing into a great thing. It's whether or not you're willing to take risks about changing your life and starting to follow your intuition and say, I'm going to make my life look like this. And this is a time for you to do that without the delusion that it will be the government that will change it for you, or wait till the election, or wait till even after the election, till somebody's inaugurated, and until after they get the House in there and then the Senate to pass it, or anything like that, when it's the changes that you have to make in your environment right now. And this is going to be a very intense week with the personal planets, Venus, Mercury, and especially if you want to add Mars in there, that are all going through a lot. Mercury in its home sign of Virgo going to oppose Neptune in its home sign. Mars in its home sign squaring over to Saturn in its home sign. Venus, not in its home sign, but she definitely loves being in Cancer, the moon's house, in opposition to Kronos, who eats his own children. And that is Venus, the goddess, having to try and talk to Kronos about how can we find some positive, feeling good energy. I don't know if I can go to bed knowing that you're eating children right next door. You know, it's kind of like, ah! Venus is a little tripped out. Especially then you've got Pluto there, which is like, who the hell that just showed up in Capricorn? And he's got some old, like 1770s judge freaking, clothing on and looks like the Grim Reaper and is like, oh, Cancers definitely want to go to bed with a nice, either the Bachelor on in the background or, maybe some white noise and some soft bed sheets. And we all kind of want that energy right now, but it's all while the Grim Reaper's watching and while there is some noises in the other room that can be quite terrifying, especially from the essence of maybe you're going to have to start to actually realize that those noises are what you're afraid of in yourself, of taking action by making choices of letting go of things that keep letting you down and keep showing you that you're hopeful about things without making a change into the environment or into the passion, or realizing that it is quite stale or basic out there right now in the universe and hollow in many ways, especially with the moon that will conjunct Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, and of course, Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, but will also square over to Mars and oppose Venus in Cancer. So we are going to see this week throw us for a circus and a loop. But it's whether or not we want to make that circus with a full buildup of a waxing moon to a full moon in Pisces, which will square Aldebaran and Antares exactly. That this is the cross and the mutable energies, but it is the cross that actually in sidereal astrology is of Taurus and of Scorpio. It's Archangel Michael, and where the Pleiades start to Aldebaran, where that's at, but the opposition to Antares, the great red giant. And this is what we are squaring, that we are in a world of light and dark, that we are at this crossroads at. And it's not the ones that the political ones are trying to show you, although you can add that, but add that last. In your life, are you ready to face your own dark and light world that you can bring imagination and change and a reality shift? Are you going to continue to keep being in the positions of your life, the relationship stories are the things that make you feel good, but they don't, and keep running to them and keep trying to leap on planes and leap into huge journeys that leave you empty the whole time going there and leave you empty when you arrive? I got a special guest right now. I got the Peace Healer's going to come up right now. We're going to switch to the chart, and we're going to bring him on stage, and we're going to have a good time. Hope that you guys enjoy us. I'll be looking at some chat stuff, too, while we're at the end. While we're getting Mike all set up here, I just thought I would show you a little bit of what's going on here with the universe. Today, we've got this essence of Earth and Mars getting closer. That Mars retrograde is about to start here in a little over a week. And, of course, the reason for that is because we are about to pass Mars. But when we start to pass Mars, and as you could see already by September 25th within the retrograde, when you look at it from this point of view, that's why it looks like it's going retrograde, because as you see, it looks like we are passing Mars, and it looks like Mars is going backwards, as if you passed a car on the freeway. And so while this is all happening, we are getting really prepared for also the square to Mars and Venus, which is coming up too. So this brings pressure in relationships, but also some pretty hot and intense energy, whether or not you're ready to take the emotional risks of what you want, or if you're closing yourself off emotionally and not wanting to define or take some sort of strength. It'll be interesting to get the Peace Dealer's input, since I know he has some very big Mars energy in his chart and some Capricorn in his. So gonna be quite interesting, to say the least. So let me move the charts here. And there we are. We got the Peace Dealer in the house. What up, dog?
Nice to see you. Nice to be back on stage with you, too.
Yeah, dude, I'm so happy to have you here, bro.
Yeah. You know what I noticed? Every time I do an event or speak, It's like right before a super life-changing major transit.
Really?
Yeah, I noticed it predictably now.
What? Like, give me an example.
I think the last time was 2019, and it's always like some like mutable full moon or like life-changing chance. I know last year Jupiter was in Sag, so that was definitely some kind of T-square there with Neptune and Jupiter. But yeah, it
Those
always
were
goes
big
down.
ones.
Oh yeah,
Those were like Jupiter square Neptune was the major one, and then I mean, it's kind of like it's playing itself out now as nobody kind of knows what's real or not real, and then it's really affecting people's psychological belief systems.
yeah, especially with people just blatantly lying and
I think your mic needs to be closer. Yeah.
especially with people just blatantly lying and making stuff up, and
It's true.
yeah, it's
Well, I want to get your insight here. We're going to look at the chart here. So here's Wednesday, where we're at today. Actually, we got the Sun in Virgo at 4, and we got Mercury at 13. Venus is the one that I've been looking at the most in this opposition to the big three that happen to be in Capricorn. And it's kind of interesting with Mars at 26. It's finishing its nice sextile to the North Node. We're going to see that though more, because I guess with Mars retrograde, it's going to come backwards, of course, and so is the North Node going in the same direction all the time since it goes opposite of the planet. So
yeah.
there's something aligning. What do you feel with this Venus though in Cancer, and how it's having to confront a lot of this really harsh energy of change and structures, and even it's kind of hopeless sometimes with Jupiter retrograde, I would say, and especially in Capricorn to a Venus in Cancer.
Yeah. I mean, I was so focused on the Sun and Mercury, I completely forgot Venus is going through its opposition, and it's weird. I didn't know how it felt, but my last 2 weeks have been like, how do I didn't realize until now, but it's like, what kind of respect do I want in relationships? And do I even want to be in love with someone who doesn't give me that like respect for who I am? Or and even outside of that, just like being more demanding than I've ever been in what I want in relationships with other people.
I think that's an interesting way, the respect part especially.
Yeah.
And that's what seems to be building up with Mars squaring Saturn too. It's almost like Saturn's trying to control the warrior, right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
this is my plan. You're my warrior. But it's almost like the warrior's like, you want to come out here and do this, mofo? You know what I mean? Like, like you want to come out here? Like,
Like you're saying all this, you're not even in my face. You're just like talking down condescendingly, and it's like, you're not out here in the field, like you know what it's like at all, or you think or you have your judgments, but I'm like, Progress Mars is like right on the verge, so it's been Star Wars for real.
right. Which it kind of feels very Star Wars like right now. There feels to be rebellions in a lot of different. You can go into a million different places about rebellion.
Yep.
But then there's that whole essence too of like, it's like we all are waiting to see how it all pans out on who the rebellion is and who's not, and who's going to be the empire, and if the empire is going to be good or if it's going to be bad, and if the rebellion's good or the rebellion's bad. I mean, it puts, I think, with this week's kind of energy of Mercury opposing over to Neptune,
Yeah.
and they're both in their home signs, very confusing times, while Venus will be in exact opposition to that Pluto. So
think
I would
that
say change is something that's going to happen, especially with a lot of relationships on the most extreme front, because actually this is the first time that Venus has ever opposed Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn in the same sign since technically the 1280s.
Jesus Christ. That's why. Well, I'm more convinced than ever. Like, relationship dynamics will never be the same again.
It's
Like,
true.
what people demand, accept. I would say even hanging out with you all right now. Like, a lot of guards I used to have up are much more down because I feel more secure in myself, and I feel more, which I feel is all part of this evolution and awakening we've gone through But yeah, specifically with this Venus, like I feel like it's getting ready to open the door for so many people, which now makes, I've always seen like that opposition. Once you make it past Capricorn, then it's victory in Leo. And you can like really relish and move forward from there. But yeah, this is just timed so perfectly, and then the full moon at the end of the week, that's just gonna change, in my opinion, everything, because now it's part of the Great Awakening. So this is like the Great Harvest, and Virgo is like review, and Pisces is like transcendent. So it's like Virgo is taking the first 5 months, it's adjusting its focus so we can like see the unseen, and it's gonna integrate like all the synchronicities, all the signs we've seen. It's like a huge breakthrough in how we perceive reality and integrate all these abilities, which once again, like we've been going through so much stuff. It's like we've been developing, releasing trauma, developing abilities, and it's all coming together, and we're moving forward, like definitively breaking through.
Yeah, I feel that. I like how you bring up it's like a breakthrough moment or like a doorway that's opening, because there is this a lot that I feel that Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto and Capricorn is like it's the two biggest planets, and then you get Pluto in between, which is extremely small but so powerful. It's like blasting off this dimensional doorway, but not in the sense of like maybe a Piscean feel, although Neptune is in sextile, of course, to Jupiter, which is opening big doors, and Neptune is in sextile to Pluto. So there is a lot of this, Neptune, Capricorn, Pisces, Capricorn, like that deals with time, and it deals with dimensions. And I feel that there's a lot of dimensional feelings and shifting. And I feel that what we're seeing right now, and you brought it up, I think, very well about relationships kind of changing forever. And I think that you and I have talked about this for, I don't even know, 8+ years, I don't know. That there's something about the relationships were, I don't know whether, and I don't know, I'm just speaking for myself, but that there's been something that's always been missing fully, or just feeling like there's been a lot of karma, especially since Venus is going to post Saturn this week. Like there's just this karmic cycle of the way we've always emotionally gone in changing. Like, I don't want to do that no more. I owe the respect to myself kind of energy.
And you know what? It's almost as if it was unconscious this whole time, or like you just owning up to it and everything. And I mean, yeah, you nailed it. Like it hits home for me, because it's almost as like I've been asking permission to be loved or respected, versus now, thankfully with Mars and Aries too, it's like I'm demanding it now. Like,
right,
this shouldn't even be a question.
I mean, you are a Mars and Aries.
Yeah.
And you do have the squares to your Capricorn in your chart. How does this Mars and Aries feel for somebody who actually has this type of transit kind of built within them?
Oh my God, it's been a literal war. I understand so much now more the Martian archetype, and like fighting a battle, and the importance of like standing independently and not conforming to, structure. Like I've really been feeling directly the Capricorn structure, but sometimes classism that's gonna trigger rebellion in that Martian energy that doesn't want to be told what to do.
Is that like your music video that you just recently did was pretty intense? I loved it. Is that kind of the feeling that you feel like you didn't care what anybody thought? You just felt like, I mean, that's how your music's always been. I'm going to be real.
True. Yeah.
Like you've always just done whatever you want. But I felt like that video took a lot of balls. I'm going to be real.
Yeah, at that point,
especially then, that was like a month and a half ago, right?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, wow. I was like, that's my boy right there. You know what I mean? I was like, yo, dog, like, wow. I put out some risky stuff, but I was like, dude, that's pretty. So, I just love to get your opinion about it. Like,
I was just so fried in a sense of like all the intensity, and just seeing this willingness for people to like accept lies and not really confront. Well, it's not even about like, because like you said, it's not like proving what's true or not, but just certain people afraid to say certain things like they are. But funny thing about that song, so the day I recorded that song, I think the night before I had made a live video and I was naming certain names and it was just going, wild and going in. And then I record I record this song and I move into my new apartment, and that same day I have that car accident.
So you have to even push through going through that.
Yeah, I almost didn't want to record the video. I was like, okay, maybe some
You thought it was a
don't.
sign maybe or something?
Well, actually, after the car accident, I was like, okay, now I'm definitely recording a video because I took it as a sign. It's like, if you want to silence me or something. But
that brings up something interesting, because it's almost like I feel right now people can kind of take things with especially Mars square Saturn, right? Like, oh God, this block has hit. I guess I'll just give up now.
Yeah.
But Mars and Aries is like, no. Because it's almost like Saturn's testing Mars. Like, are you really a warrior? Do you really? Because Saturn actually is very just like basic. Just like, will you be the authority of what you are fully, right?
That's true.
Because Saturn doesn't want to control everything as much, because I think he feels like nobody stands up to the authority that he wants to be within himself. Mm-hmm. He wants to see others in authority. That's why he grants trophies and awards for those that do.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, I feel like there's that test that comes to people like, do I just flop over and give up, even though I know in my heart that I'm supposed to do this? But that's the whole South Node Sag. It's like, there are things right now that we obviously need to drop. I think that's what Venus and Cancer is emotionally, that really are not in alignment with our truth with this North Node in Gemini.
Yeah.
And especially relationships, I would say, or even let's say projects. You mentioned a project of your video that I had brought up, but it's something that, has been part of the story of your life that has made sense and has continued to give you benefits.
Yeah.
I feel like anything right now that is not been beneficial, it's just always keeps kaplunking, and you're really still trying to do that. It's like, I feel like this is really, there's going to be people who are still going to be trying to use this Mars and Aries energy to still push things that are not of the authenticity of truth, or that are counterfeit emotionally, because they're too afraid to face emotion. I love that you're a Gemini, of course, because of this North Node in Gemini. It's the only sign that's neutral.
Yeah, I feel like that's helped me be so objective with everything, and just like look at things as they are, and not and doing that gives me so much more insight, and like puts things so much in perspective. And I really love how you said it's a test, because it really does feel like a test, and it feels like it makes it easier to see it as a test, because the experience is very much so like, well, that pressure from Capricorn is like, you're not good enough, and the Mars and Aries is like, I don't care, like, why do you think I care? Like, I'm gonna keep doing it. But it does feel very much like a test, like, let's keep going. And
I think there's gonna be a big test this week, because on Thursday here, Moon, which is tomorrow, the Moon comes in Capricorn and is going to join up with all that Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn.
Yeah.
And it's at a time when we're in Virgo season, so it's a lot of Earth. A lot of Earth. You got the Sun, we got Mercury, and then we got the Moon, and we got Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn, and Uranus, all on Earth. And so fire-wise, we just got Mars. And water-wise, we only just got Neptune and Venus, which are actually in trine. That Venus-Neptune trine is going to be happening during this. So it's almost like real dreams can really come true right now.
I really agree with that.
But at the same time, if they don't pass some sort of structured test of truth, because I think with Mars here at 26 on the last day of sextiling this North Node in Gemini, I think that our egos have to somewhat put aside the things that we're battling that we know deep inside are not structurally good for us, or they're not going anywhere positive, and they're emotionally kind of being held on to. Because we all are people who do that. Like, trust me, like, even in relationships, right? Sometimes you have a relationship, be like, oh, I'll keep trying. I'll keep trying. I'll keep trying. It's like, man, it's like how many times you go to bed going, I'm such an idiot. This would definitely be this times infinity of that, I feel.
True that.
Or the opposite, like, you know what? I'm curious. I think the curiosity of Gemini is what saves everybody right now.
Yeah.
To question more.
Yeah, definitely.
Instead of just hopefully run off into the universe like, oh, it'll be fine. This'll work out eventually or something.
No one has that trust anymore, really. No. I love what you said about the Grand Earth Trine, because that to me is like, it's like a real shot for the next 5 months from now until Capricorn. So it's like you're being given the opportunity, kind of like a stimulus check, to kind of like have resources. And if you're in line of truth, you're going to invest that and make it more. And if not, you're going to spend it. But I see it as like you need to use it wisely, because you may not have that ever again for a while. And it's like the squirrels that save their nuts or, get screwed in the wintertime.
Ooh, that's some deep stuff right there.
Yeah.
And it's also going to be interesting because as Mercury at 14, it's had the trines to Uranus, but it was so fast. Because if you look at the speed of Mercury, of course, after it passed the sun, it's still doing almost 2 degrees a day.
Damn.
1 minute 1 degree 48 minutes. And here's Venus finally back at full speed after her retrograde in Gemini. But that 19, it's kind of like with Venus here trining Neptune at 19 degrees, and with the moon in Capricorn, with no more south node here, this moon in Capricorn can do a lot of positive things. There's no more delusions in Capricorn, I feel. I think it's more obsessive with Pluto, but it also can be truth with Pluto of like seeing through the depth, So some people get, I think that the political nature, because this is Thursday, I think Trump's speaking Thursday, if I'm correct. I think that's the last day of the RNC.
Nice.
So this is going to trigger, I think, a lot of...
Oh, yes.
This is going to be a very triggery day, not only for the fact politically, but I think it's going to be a triggery day in people's lives when it comes to what you just said of like, there is some amazing dream energy here for people with Venus, Neptune trine and this grand trine and Earth stuff, and especially with the sun at 5 degrees of Virgo, that's actually in pretty much trine to where the solar eclipse was in Christmas. It was at 4 degrees of Capricorn. So there's a deep look at a lot of stuff right now, but that Venus is getting ready to oppose Pluto, but it's not exact. It's at the midpoint though, because 1722, that would put the midpoint right there at 19.
Yeah.
So a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction opposite Venus. I feel like, there's a lot of things that we have to learn to destroy and also bring into our lives. Like in order to close a door, I always say that's the only way to open a door in many ways. Or sometimes in order to open a door, we got to close the door, whatever. There's going to be definitely, I think, a lot of choices being made Thursday, Friday with all this Capricorn stuff. Because if you look at Friday, like it's the moon on top of Jupiter with Pluto and Saturn.
Yep.
And Venus now coming to 20, which is done with the Neptune. And that's pretty hard opposition right there.
I think the main lesson with Venus too is like getting what you want and not sabotaging it. And like, I think some people are so addicted to suffering and like things going bad. Like when things start to go their way, are you gonna actually own it, or are you gonna play the old scripts? But I definitely have a very fascinating question for you, because we know, I think it was like 80 or 82 where we had the triple conjunction in Libra and Mars was there with it, right? So now that it's back right now, March 2020, we know Mars is the god of war, Jupiter in its fall in Capricorn is like a lack of resources, which is like famine, and Pluto is pestilence, and we can say Saturn is death. So that's like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse started their cycle.
Right.
And it makes a lot of sense as to why like things in 2020 have been hitting the fan, but we're so used to seeing like the end of age or apocalypse as like a one-day event where everything hits the fan. But it's like kind of really cool to see it as like an actual trackable cycle. And then Mars
Right.
went into Aries, and we had like Chaz and Chop happen, and Saturn went into Aquarius, and we had social limitation of like
Right.
censorship. So,
But then it was like lockdowns in America, at least, that were
Yeah.
like not like lockdowns.
true.
Like Saturn and Aquarius kind of made it more like, well, you know, I don't
Like
know.
we're locking down, but
Yeah, but like, you know what I mean? So it is social distance, but it also is like like today I watched on the news, like there's a lot of universities that I think half of the states in America have tested a lot of kids going to college, especially freshmen and stuff, as positive coronavirus tests, right? So it's like, oh my gosh, like, do we just close every college down right now? And actually, like, there was some student who's in charge of like all the students in America, like some board for kids and that are now freshmen and stuff. And he's like, these kids, and they didn't get to finish high school with a prom. They didn't get to finish with a graduation. They didn't get to hang out with their friends through any of that.
Yeah.
And now you've just thrown them into college as freshmen, and you really think that you're going to be able to wrangle, 13,000 freshmen at all these universities, and also, get them in trouble for what they're doing outside of the school, and keep track of all of them? It's impossible.
that's true.
And so there's kind of like a demonization right now out there, to answer your question, as there was about marriage. So when we came into that 80s for that triple conjunction you talked about, at the end of the 70s was the peak of divorce. It was also the end of the long-haired hippie movement. As we entered the 80s, I like to say people were smoking weed, and then the next thing you know, it was blow. That's how people dealt with life, right? But if you take this now into the context of now, it feels like there's a more bigger judgment
Yeah.
that's above, because back then it was the judgment of, oh, you're single, or you're not still staying married, because that was very common. Divorce was super common at the end of the 70s, and Saturn and Virgo especially coming into Libra. And of course it would be this kind of peak of divorce where it was normalized.
Right.
Now, like, the peak is at dinner tables. If you don't agree on the same political nature, like, you're not in the family anymore. Or if you're on a dating app now, it'll just straight up be like, if you like Biden, swipe left. If you like Trump, swipe left.
Right.
Like, it's like all political, right? And then drug wise, it's like interesting how to see, the rave culture to even the hip hop scene to everything. People there wasn't really a defined drug, but the defined drug that has been opioid abuse.
Yep.
And to see that come into such a heavy load over the last 2 years of Capricorn, and it not being discussed on the news at all right now,
Yeah.
as that's still going on. And so that's what's kind of funny, is it's being politicized on both sides. One that wants to talk about it, another that doesn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And it is very Capricornian, which is very melancholy. Like, people are almost like wanting to go down, where I think Libra was like, Saturn's strong in Libra, it's exalted, but Jupiter Libra and with Pluto Libra, it's the yearning for wanting to connect to people. So it's almost like, weed was a way of connecting, I think, in the very 70s, Chiron Aries, but it was Chiron Taurus too,
Wow.
coming in to the 80s, right? And it was people wanting to connect. And now we're at a time where it's like people are wanting to separate. Neptune and Pisces too was not there in that triple conjunction. I think it was 81 into 80. But that was the time in which, we're dealing with Chiron and Aries. Like, we're dealing with many different situations here, that Neptune and Pisces especially. Because back then, if it was in the 80, it was Neptune and Sag. So it was a nice harmony, like it is again with all these planets.
Okay.
But Neptune and Sag had a bright, optimistic hope
Yeah.
for this,
A vision.
about being bigger, right? Like, build the
Yeah.
cities bigger, build
so true.
build the cars bigger, build everything bigger.
Yeah.
Like, it was, and then it reminds me of Scarface, just like, I can own the world, and the bigger amount of blow on my table, the better. You know what I mean? Like, it was just kind of like, and that's why you see houses get bigger, everything gets bigger. But now with the Neptune and Pisces and with this Capricorn, it's almost like people are getting very depressed, I would say, by going through the realization that the universe is constricting the biggest time that we live through, that we're not going to go through that much of expansion again. I think that's my personal opinion.
It does seem like a so bittersweet. Like it seems like this would have been the culmination of everything, like coming into completion. But we also know that Pisces and Capricorn are endings. So like we had that Jupiter cycle come through Saturn 2010. So it's really awesome to see, you know, us all facilitating completions, getting ready to break through, reach mastery, and it's so fascinating to see this with Neptune since 2012 and its influence on the media and deception with it, and more so how it's not only ending, but I mean even the transits looking forward to 2023 where the cycle ends and then Saturn comes through and then Pluto comes through. That has me thinking now we're getting ready to just Pluto return with America and just like really end the season series and step into a whole new paradigm. Well, which we've been doing, but
Definitely.
yeah.
Well, I want to show you this about the relationship thing. As we kind of come into Saturday here, we're still going to have that moon in Capricorn. But look at this. Venus at 22 opposing Pluto at 22. But look what else is at 22. Juno, 23-ish. Right? So we're going to see a Venus. We're going to see a big... I mean, if you want to add Eris and Mars in there, that's a big cardinal cross, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, Juno is the goddess of the goddesses, and it is the marriage, you know, asteroid in Libra especially, right? Wow. But in square to Venus in Cancer, and then in square to Pluto in Capricorn, and opposite Mars and opposite Eris.
Yeah.
This is definitely a pressure point that is very intense about relationships. And then you have Mercury in opposition to Neptune. Am I crazy or not? Can I make that real, or am I delusional, or am I really following my intuition? This is what it is, and I'm going to make that my reality. I feel like it could be definitely entrances of great ones and exits of bad ones very intensely this weekend.
Absolutely.
Especially with the moon coming into Aquarius too.
Oh, and I can't wait for that. That's going to be so necessary. That's to me is like finally knowing how to change everything moving forward, like integrate everything we picked up. And I love everything you just showed me, because it just showed me like the cardinal cross is like a full definition of your character, and then the opposition is now coming into a complete perspective of how to see it and how to perceive it. And that makes sense now too, why like the Venus in Cancer is like, oh, I want a wife right now, like I want to get booed up. And now it's the Capricorn to Mars, that's like, well, hold on, wait, like I don't want to be careful about just getting intimate with somebody that,
Or it's just like, right, you just don't want to just get married to get married.
yeah, exactly,
right?
exactly.
Or a good example, if they don't have the same, what Capricorn would be like the same structure of a life, like wanting to go in the same direction, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, it'd be like, you know, like, oh yeah, I don't know, I was gonna throw comedy in there. It's like, oh yeah, like keep doing OnlyFans and I'll keep doing, you know, my thing on YouTube. But like eventually they're gonna go in different directions, or one's gonna affect the other or something. I don't know.
Which was fascinating, by the way, bringing that up, because it's such a hot topic button, because it's lucrative and
yeah, I don't have any negative things to say about it. It's like, I think anybody right now that can figure out in this Capricorn life,
right,
to continue to move through, to make through, and not just be reliant on hopefulness that the government will save your life, which with Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn, it's definitely like not even giving that much anyway.
No,
you know?
right.
Like, let's be real. Like $1,200 is not even, I don't know anywhere in America that you could really survive much on that, you know? So,
especially with unemployment and all that.
right.
And then Mars is adding this element of independence, where it's like, yeah, I can be with someone, but what do I want, for sure? And Chiron has been so empowering, and like, I feel like the Chiron Pisces was too sensitive, and it was hard to like say certain things. It's already hard, but like at least with Chiron and Aries, is that boldness to where it's like, all right, well, whether I get backlash or not, like.
Yeah, because in the 70s, it was 69 that Venus or Chiron came in Aries, but we never knew about Chiron until 77. So this is the first time we're really aware of Chiron being in Aries.
Yeah.
But it was the hippie, people with long hair and bell bottoms and, but it was that like boldness of like, you know what? I'm going to have shag carpet. Like, you know what? I'm going to grow my hair long. You know what? I'm going to do that, right? And so it's kind of interesting to see even with fashion and trends, because that's definitely Aries too, with that whole identity aspect.
Yeah.
It's weird that it's like this Capricorn's been kind of holding that back from Chiron a little bit.
That's true.
But I think what Aquarius is going to bring is we're going to see radical new fashion trends, radical new ways to just go about this life like we saw in the early 70s that we haven't even seen that are the ingredients to help us through the times that we've been through. So I advocate for people right now to follow whatever is in their heart and to be bold enough to stand in it. This is definitely a time, like you had said earlier, it's a test of your character, and it's a test to own the character of your truth and not just hook up with somebody just to hook up with somebody unless there is some sort of like, I would say, common denominator.
Yeah.
Doing long equations of division, you need a common denominator to make it all work. When the denominator is different, it turns into muckluck. And I feel that these are about keeping things simple in Virgo. Like, it's pretty simple. It's like, do our lives make sense? Or are we going to be arguing about stupid political things to also the direction that you might believe that life should go? Because I think that the deepest thing about this Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn and Capricorn is this unwritten book of how we should live our lives, of rules that we put on ourselves about how we should live. So when it comes to OnlyFans, is the trigger thing that we were talking about. It's like, why not? Like, if that's what somebody wants to do with their life, there's guys doing OnlyFans that aren't even it's like they just are fans. Like, it's a kind of like a wider range of how you might want to connect with somebody or learn more about them in their own paywall. Mm-hmm. But, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if we're really talking about freedom of Aquarius, people have to start to accept the freedoms of people having freedoms in all areas,
Yeah.
And that's something that I think's been repressed for a long time. I mean, going back hundreds of years and thousands of years, but to even just every little corner of our life that I think Virgo is highlighting right now through these transits this weekend.
Yeah.
Is like, oh, look at that little part that, maybe inside yourself, why do you always judge it? Because I think that the judgment of the 80s and the judgment of now is the karmic part. How much judgment was done over the last 37 years is a big question, right? It's like, it's a lot to think about. There's been a lot of judgments over, if you meet somebody and they're like, I've been married 4 times. It's like, are you going to judge them? Like, you might have been through 10 relationships but not married, but that person's 4 marriages is bad or something.
True.
Like, I feel that this is definitely about
true.
the character that we have to support one another in our own characters and align with the ones that like our character and we like their character. And then we don't have to go against the ones that we don't maybe agree with or we don't find the character as interesting because it's Gemini. You're a Gemini, anybody that starts talking to you that you're not interested in talking to, it's like already the brain has turned off to the conversation and you probably don't even know what they said and your mind's probably already in another direction. And then it's the whole, I got to go to the bathroom or something and you're just out. Yeah. Am I right or no?
No, this is facts. Yeah.
And so that's where the North Node is. So it's like, it's okay to not be interested in certain people's character at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think it's bad to obsess over characters that you are not even interested in a negative way, with Pluto even getting ready to start quincunxing the North Node in Gemini. That's what's coming, is people obsessed with figuring out how to control somebody's change of character.
Right. Like I've been feeling that a lot too. Like, I think that makes sense. I think that's the quincunx and the Neptune square. It's like this type of psychological preconditioning about who we want you to be, and we'll reinforce that with negativity if you don't do it and positivity if you do it. And it is an obsession, and it's just really weird.
It's very
troubling.
cultish,
It's very
actually.
cultish, yeah.
And since this is the same alignment as the witch trials of 1692 with Neptune's position, there is that cancel culture that's out there.
Yep.
And there is that cancel culture that's not if you're an online personality or somebody who talks. There's that cancel culture just within your family or your friends or, even a lover possibly, right? Like there's cancel culture that's very intense, that's very Capricornian, Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, right? It's like Jupiter's like, it reminds me of when, like in Aladdin, the genie is now under Jafar. It's kind of like Jupiter and Capricorn is like, okay, Saturn, Pluto, whatever you wish for. You know what I mean? Like, oh God, this is like,
so true.
And then the whole belief of, like I'm using like, Disney stories, but when Scar takes over the Lion King in the plains, it's like, and we will bring the hyenas into the world with us, and everybody's like, I don't know about that one. And it was like being sold, as like, and nobody, and none of them stood up to him either.
That's true.
Right. And then the same thing with Jafar, at least Aladdin tricked him. Like, you should be a genie and you could, be the all powerful genie yourself. You should wish to be a genie.
Oh.
And so when somebody takes this Capricorn too far with that, so that's how Jafar lost, is he took this power too far. And then he became a genie, and then he had to be trapped in the bottom on the lamp. And then remember, he throws, the genie kicks him back into the diamond in the rough. That whole like lion that owns where he has to go.
Yeah, that's deep.
And I feel that right now, people trying to in themselves take too much of that power. Mars is checking it to be like, do I want to battle for Jafar?
Right.
Or do I want to battle for, I think the positive part of Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn is there are those that have character, that have plans, that have something, that are here to do something, that feel like they're fulfilling something that goes beyond, with Neptune and sextile, that goes beyond just what we see in reality, but that feels called towards some sort of universal truth or some sort of higher godly position, or something that feels like it's about, there's a purpose to being here. Because I don't feel that Jafar had a purpose except for his own gain.
Yeah. It was very inherently selfish, which makes sense. And then versus a more collective, like cumulative, like view, which it makes me so fascinated about everything that's building up with Saturn and Pluto and Capricorn, and then the war that'll come square Uranus, which I can only imagine is these riots and lootings that are going to reach an extreme then.
Especially even when Mars goes retrograde to square Saturn and square Pluto and square Jupiter, while they're all coming direct. I mean,
yeah,
like they're already happening, but it's like, then this is going to, Mars retrograde is definitely when people start acting differently about it. Or, I mean, already that's why I think this week was so crazy to see a cop shoot somebody 7 times, and then to see a protester bring a gun, and then he's being chased down. But instead of like kind of seeing, I don't know, I mean, he just like fires at people. Like, it's pretty, that's Mars square Saturn, and we're about to see this for an extended time. Since Mars is just going to go one more degree, 28 degrees, right? Here it is at 27. It's pretty much just stopped there until September 9th, 10th, when it goes to 28 and stops, which is weird because that 28th degree, if I remember right, is where the Boston bombing happened in 2013.
In Aries.
In Aries, with Mars and Aries.
Yeah. Didn't something just pass?
And it was the sun, and it was
some 0 degrees.
It was the sun, and then it was like the Pluto-Uranus square was happening.
That's true.
Which was another Aries Capricorn square.
Yeah.
That a lot of what we saw from 2012 to 2015 of that Pluto-Uranus square is kind of acting itself out now. Because those were the times, actually, 2012 to 2015, and then there was about the police and the racial injustice, right? That whole string, right?
Yeah.
And then that's all coming up now. And then if you think about during that time, there was a lot of things about celebrity culture shifting and how it was, and questions about it. Right? Like a lot of questions, like why?
It was more of a rumor.
It was, it was all rumors and all that. And then now it's like, no, this is going down.
Right. That's why I was laughing when you talked about Kronos eating babies and how relevant that is to
the whole child stuff that's going on right now. I mean, and you know, people get a little weird when I say that, but I'm like, look at the mythology. I mean, if you look at a picture of Saturn on Google, that's what will pop up, you know, all the time, right? So it's like, you know, if you just type in Saturn,
what a reputation.
Like Saturn, and you know, Saturn's also given, especially in Capricorn, the whole thing of being the devil, right?
Yeah, that too.
Because Saturn, Satan, but Saturn, Kronos, and you look at the picture, and you look at the images. I mean, the first picture on Google, the first picture on Google is him eating a child.
Yep, the very first one.
Right?
That's wild.
And so nobody likes to look at these pictures, or nobody wants to, you know, that's the other thing about this Neptune and Pisces. It's very sensitive.
Yeah, it is.
And I think you brought up the best thing about Chiron there. It was like, you know, it was almost sensitivities that was hidden. It was like, because I remember I was dealing with anxiety really bad, and, you know, but it was like I didn't want to reveal it to people. So you'd go to a party or something and you'd be like, I'm really sensitive about this, but I'm not going to say shit.
Yeah.
But then now, people make it very clear now, like, oh, I don't eat that. I'm allergic to that. Or, you know, I don't, you know, Aries kind of brings out like, this is my issue.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is my thing that I need healing on.
That's true.
It's like they push it in people push it in the face now, you know, directly. It's like, okay, whoa, okay. Like, I've
embrace it.
You know, what do you need? You know?
That's that's once again very fascinating. One thing you said about pointing out that Uranus Pluto square, it makes even more sense now, because a lot of these issues are all squared around an authority figure that is having an issue with like a thug or a hoodlum or someone who's like presented that way, which is very Aries, and like their criminal history is looked at, or the actions they're taking versus this perception of what the structure is supposed to look like, and seeing the issues on both sides.
Which it's funny, it's flipped. When Chiron was in Aries, when during the Vietnam War, when the soldiers came back, they were called the baby killers. They were called right, and like nobody accepted the veterans coming back. Like,
wow,
right? Like that's the whole story of Rambo. Like, you know, like he wasn't accepted.
Word, Rambo.
Because that whole story of Rambo, that's Sylvester Stallone, it's Sylvester Stallone does, is that he's a vet who goes to Washington in some town, and the sheriff doesn't like him, and is like, you ain't gonna be eating here. I could drive you to the next town.
Oh,
and he's like, what? I'm a veteran trying to get back. You know, I'm American. You know, and then that's when he goes to all hell on the sheriff. You know, and gets a bunch of guns, and next thing you know, he like holds himself up in the mountain and takes out all the National Guard and all the people, and then they have to call in his old commander to pull him out, you know, and then he goes to battle in the streets, you know. So this is Rambo season, but it's like now the military is looked at like as nothing, do no wrong.
Yeah.
And now it's people that are in the streets, so it's kind of all flipped, right? The streets were mad at the military, now the military is mad at the streets. In a different way. It's very flipped. And that's the weird thing I'm seeing, is everything's flipped. Neptune and Pisces was, you know, the Democrats were in control, that created the Civil War. Will it be the Republicans? It's a big question, actually. And then you see the Chiron and Aries flip, and then you see also the flip of the witch trials were on spiritual, you know, people doing spirituality, but it's almost like now science is creating anybody that's into religion as the witch trials.
So
or believing in God is no longer valid. It's not scientifically proven.
Yeah.
You know? And so now science is becoming, if you want to get real deep, dude, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn of 1284 was when the Catholic Church, that period, took over, you know, full control of French kings, English kings, and everything. Like, that's the three-tier tier of the Pope. That's like, you go to war if I tell you to go to war. You get married when I tell you to get married. You can't get divorced, right? So science is the new church.
And I mean, that's very fascinating because, like, you know, given the theoretical nature of most of these theories and models of making up the world, you'd have to really just believe in good faith that this person knows what they're talking about.
Exactly. And even it was the 1860 election that would be the next election, 2024, of Neptune's position, that it was the first time that people on the ballot were able to see a picture of the presidential candidate they were voting for.
Wow.
You have to remember that you didn't see the presidents and you didn't see them talk like we see today, right?
Yeah.
Like you would just hearsay from a guy or a woman who was in the area of that president speaking, or if they were lucky to come to your town, but that was not impossible.
You said Neptune was in Pisces then?
It was at the edge of Pisces. Yeah, the 2024 election will be the same position.
Damn.
So what's interesting is that was the first time that, you know, you could be like, well, that's a picture of Lincoln, and that's a picture of Douglas, and that's a picture of, you know, you'd be like, oh, wow, okay, this is who I'm looking at.
2024 elections is definitely not, I don't think we're going to even be voting in person or in mailing. Like, it's going to be some new type of technology for sure. If
well, maybe you have to have the backs, you know, in order to vote or something. Who
that
knows?
would
like,
be
you know
crazy.
What I mean?
Like, you have a whole new vaccine ID.
Well, that's the other thing is real ID, you know, was supposed to be out to get on a plane.
Yeah. Do you have to retake vaccine? I have a real ID, but you think they're going to make you like, you have to update your...
I don't know. Those are big questions that I think this Capricorn Mars transit are going to bring up in retrograde.
Yeah.
But I have a couple like last things I want to go through with you here. So this weekend looks pretty nuts about relationships. It looks pretty nuts about the character of yourself. I think that you brought that up very well. Venus is definitely besieged. She's not getting a lot of she's not getting a lot of love. I mean, even Juno's not giving her love. And Pluto opposed Venus is definitely where people are very blocked. Have you ever noticed about Pluto Venus people? Like
Pluto opposite Venus?
Any Pluto Venus, right?
Yeah.
Just it can be very.
I'm Pluto opposite Venus. I'm very blocked.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I've dated in my life, my fair share of my life. So, you know, any Venus Pluto women for me, because I date women, it's like, you know, like, you know, there's not a lot of trust issues or just not wanting to reveal their life fully yet or not, you know, but this also could be blocks of the fear of making a change too. Like, oh, the truth is in front of my face. I don't know if I want to deal with it now. And then with Mars getting ready to square Venus, which I'm a Mars square Venus person. I have Mars in Scorpio and Venus in Leo. You know, I don't really, you know, like that's where it's hard for me with Pluto Venus people, because I'm like, if it looks good and we both are on it, let's go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Mars is after Venus, and Venus that likes that is after it. But, you know, in today's culture, especially with all this Capricorn, I'm saying that a lot of the generation, especially in our age group and younger, act more like 70 and 80-year-old men and women than 20-year-olds.
Yeah. I've been hearing a lot of men say that too. For both men and women, but, you know, men saying that they have to move a lot more different just because, you know, you never know what accusations you might come in.
Exactly. Like there's that, but then there's also this, again, Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, which Pluto has been dealing already with Uranus and Aries, which is like, do you notice how 2012 through 2015 was where YouTube explodes and Instagram explodes and personalities of social media take over the culture of television. Yeah. It's people who stand in who they are and their character and explode that are benefiting from the Pluto-Uranus square that forced you to break part of the system and be your own independent self.
Yeah.
Right?
And I get what you mean now when you're like doing stuff new instead of building, because it seems everything happening now is building off on that.
Everything is building off that, because that was a major square with even the nodes at the time in Libra and Aries South Node, and then you had Saturn and Scorpio during that whole time. Yeah. And it's quite interesting about transformation of like that what we're seeing now is all the result of the last 10 years since last Jupiter opposite Saturn
Yeah.
which was with Jupiter and Uranus opposed Saturn, and they were both playing coming into Pisces and Aries and back. How Chiron just did that, and even this Mars retrograde won't do that. The last one did in 88, though. So you're born with Mars, what, 7?
8.
8.
Yeah.
Aries.
Mars 8, Uranus 8.
And yours was direct because you were before the retrograde.
Uranus?
Mars.
Mars was direct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, there was a retrograde. I forgot about
Mars
that.
went retrograde at 11 degrees in 88.
And wait. I
In
was
the,
born
in the fall.
Oh, okay. So and it goes every 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah.
So
That's
this is
wild.
your big, Mars return.
Yeah.
that
it feels
happens
like
at 32.
Yeah.
And it always happens in a retrograde at 32, when somebody's 32.
So at 32, my Mars returns at the same Mars position you're talking about?
Correct.
Progressed?
Just in your natal chart.
It's a bit past that for me though now.
Well, it is. It's past it. But I'm just saying that everybody at 32 years old, look at your chart. Mars will become home and retrograde in the sign in which your Mars is at. Or for some people, it might be like in 88, Mars retrograded 11 of Aries and went back into Pisces and then came direct.
Oh, after the retrograde. That's
Right.
what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
But I'm saying that you were born because you're a Gemini, you were born before the retrograde. So,
There was one in 88 and one in 90. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, but then it was out of Aries in 90. It doesn't make it all the way to Aries, or it makes it to Aries and goes past it and then retrogrades
Oh, it doesn't retrograde in Aries. I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that Mars transit has been super empowering. It's just been a reminder about, owning up to your ego, not being too sensitive of your ego, but just being your own personal badass and not backing down.
It's the
Very grateful.
refuel of Mars
Yeah.
at 32.
Okay.
It's where you refuel your Mars. The retrograde is actually a refueling to give you the confidence for the next cycle in your life. You've already made it through the Saturn return. Then you go through the Mars retrograde thing, and then you get ready for your nodal return and your Jupiter return that comes at 35 into 36. Pretty crazy.
Just to make sure I get you right, so you're saying at 32 Mars retrogrades, or that's just like the cyclical?
It's just the cycle that you were born under is you're coming into.
Specific for me. Okay.
For everybody every chart.
Everybody.
Every chart at 32.
So Mars doesn't retrograde, but it's the retrograde cycle.
Uh-huh.
Okay. That's wild.
Got to remember, because for people at 32 or whenever like a good example is Mars was in Aries for a good 8 months in 88, right? So a lot of people have it. Not every single person, but you'll see though at 32, Mars is going to be in the cycle of what it returns to be at 32 years old. So at 32, Mars went retrograde in Scorpio, the same in 84 like it did. Okay. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So I have
Looking forward to that,
some last things here that are pretty crazy. We're going to kind of skip ahead time-wise. So we get to this full moon energy. That's what I really want to cover.
Big change.
We're going to see this with Venus exactly opposing Saturn. So if we actually, so we got Venus here at 25 degrees, and then Saturn will be exactly at 25:56. And then the full moon in Pisces is going to happen at 9 degrees, 10 degrees. I didn't exactly make it here because we were rushing, but so it's going to happen there at 9, 10, and that's square actually, which, at 10 degrees, and 10 degrees is Aldebaran and Antares on the ecliptic. So
Venus is next to the vertex then, for real. That's wild.
Yeah, and so what I'm interested in your opinion about this one is seeing a full moon in Pisces, especially it's even in opposition with Mercury still opposing Neptune, but Mercury trine Pluto and trine Saturn. And Mercury's in its home sign, Saturn is in its home sign.
Yeah.
But this Venus activity is also with Mercury and there's a lot going on. If I just erase the chart real quick, I mean, if you see the
double
angles,
opposition
I mean,
is
this
just
is a
too
wild
profound.
full moon. This is definitely not some basic full moon like yay, full moon.
Yep.
It's definitely got a lot of aspects going on here. And Mercury is going to start squaring the nodes, actually. I think a lot of people are coming on this full moon into a dimensional shift in their reality, and a choice to be made with Mercury, with Pluto, Saturn in trine, and even Venus in opposition to Saturn, where if you didn't take the weekend and you didn't get it, like I kind of feel like, oh, let's show you your delusions or let's show you your dreams by this full moon. How do you feel?
I think that's a good way to put it. It's like the cardinal oppositions is like forced action that will reveal your character, that you'll have no choice to take, because it's like you either do this or that, and then the full moon will show you, how to see it. But one thing that is just so fascinating to me is how this really represents like a completion of some sorts of everything since 2012 and 2008 with Pluto in Cap and Neptune in Pisces. So it's like, I know after this weekend, there's certain things that I will just never really do again, have reached its natural conclusion, which trips me out, because I've been saying that I wouldn't do this again for years or for weeks. And it's just been perpetual and habitual, versus now where everything is just not only coming to its natural completion, but it's just cycles of stuff that I've done that's just naturally ending, which makes me feel like I'm I'm in some carousel or ride, and I'm really, really ready to step into, and we're ready to step into the next cycle. But the thing I really see with this full moon is just if you think of where we were 2014, 2012, and we're reaching such a mastery and completion of that skill, and we're ready to just like take it to the next level. So I'm just excited. I'm really excited for that. I see it as like we're adjusting focus. We're seeing things that we didn't see and were unconscious to us. And then over the next 6 months, we're bringing it fully into our reality and pushing into this alpha overdrive of Aqua and creating new collectives with it.
Yeah, this will be the last full moon until, I guess it'd probably mathematically in my head would either be late November or would be beginning of December of a Mars retrograde. Mars direct. Like, this is the last full moon of Mars direct.
Yeah.
For the whole Mars retrograde cycle. So this is kind of everybody thinks that every week I say it's you must be like now, that, right? But I think this is about your character of your dreams and how I love how you said, like, be like a squirrel now and take the things in life that you need, because of Mars retrograde, square Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter. You brought up famine. You brought up, examples that we've seen in history, or even just the planets themselves of lack. Mm-hmm. I'm sure, that's why I asked you personally about your chart, because you have, this whole Aries Capricorn square in your chart.
Yeah.
That I'm sure, is there times in life where you go, fuck, I should have just done it. It was right there, and I held myself back. And then other times when you're like, okay, I did it, and I should have held myself back. I shouldn't have done it.
Yes.
Which one do you feel more, the lack or that you over pushed it too hard?
That is such a good question. I would say the Capricorn has always held back my Aries. So now that this is reawakening, it's really more so now doing more and abandoning that Saturnian fear, because that's another thing too. It's like the Capricorn is fear and the Aries is like fearlessness,
right,
without being too reckless and still. But to answer your question, I would say I think thankfully I've reached a place where I'm moving forward with Mars and not letting the fear stop me, and addressing anything that I could have done and taking the next opportunity to do so. But I can say more so, personally, the recklessness is a lot with like expressing ideas versus holding them back, because this is like a 9th, 12th house thing. So I'm like simulating experiences and having mild schizophrenic episodes where I like fully step into the episodes, and it's like I don't even care if it's not a real situation. I'll just fully simulate it so I can feel it out and express it out. And it's very empowering. It's very taking your power backy energy.
Well, I wouldn't expect anything less from a Gemini mind. Like you gotta let it out, and express it,
See how it
and say.
sounds.
And I'm a North Node Gemini, and you and I both are Mercury on the ascendant. That it has to be, and that's what I think what people are doing in essence in life right now to try and understand where everybody's coming from in a sense. Because right now, I think if we come from the lens where let's try and understand everybody's view. Opposed to, I only understand it from my point of view. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, that's very Sag, actually, not Gemini. Gemini's like, all right, you're pretty cool, but I'm going to make sure that, how are you? You know, Gemini will always, like, in a group be like, how are you? And how are you? Okay, yeah. I'm going with these peeps, or I'm going with this person. We're going to go hang out tonight.
Okay.
You know? Like, Gemini will always contrast neutrally, like, What's your point of view on things? Like, I don't, and I think that's the beautiful part of this full moon is that there's a gift that's coming, or I'm going to be very honest. There's something that feels with Pisces vibe and Neptune even being there of that you don't attain it, right? Like it's within your grasp, but if you didn't do anything, it's not going to show up. And so I feel like it's weird because it's kind of flat, all this Virgo, Jupiter retrograde, the Capricorn, last degrees, it's stopped. Venus oppose it in Cancer, wanting all these beautiful things to happen, but it almost feels like a blank sheet of paper or like an emptiness that's kind of yearning. And here's Mars square Saturn still, like, I really want to go forward more, but I can't. I'm stopping to go retrograde. And here's Saturn that's like, I'm stopping to go direct to give my last kind of authoritative, position with this many planets with me. I've got it's Jafar is like about to go do his big thing when Saturn comes direct. This October is going to be nuts. So this September is one to remember. It's one of the things I said back in the day. I don't know if you remember. I did September to Remember of 2013, I think it was.
Back in the day. Yeah.
And so that's, to me, this is bringing back September to Remember then into now, but it's extreme now. It's coming up.
Yeah.
And I want to ask as well, because the gift thing is with Venus opposed Saturn, Venus will give or will get things from Saturn as long as it's like showing that it's like the father, like a Venus Saturn thing can be a little bit like a father telling a daughter, like, hey, like, make sure you're home and make sure you don't wear too short of a skirt kind of thing, right? But then there's the father that's proud of the daughter of just life or whatever, that trusts her in her sense of how she lives, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we have to all kind of go through that internal feminine and masculine test right now. Saturn's checking both.
Yeah.
Saturn's squaring Mars, Saturn's opposing Venus during this full moon. And it's almost like, are you worthy of the beautiful dream? If you can pass the test of, can you handle your emotional feminine needs and making sure they're in alignment with your destiny or alignment with your trajectory and what your goals are in your life. And then with Mars, this warrior, this strong masculine defining aspect, I'll let you go with what you want to, but are you defining from your ego and your identity correctly, or is it based off some sort of group belief system, or is it off your own curiosity? It's almost like Saturn in quincunx to the North Node with Mars square and with Mars sextile the North Node. It's like, I'm looking for the curious warrior. I don't want the warrior that's following beliefs or following what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Especially since I went through a Pluto-Uranus square battle, or Pluto's like, I went through a battle with Uranus to try and wake up Uranus to go be, your unique self.
Yeah. Which I'm so grateful for. Uranus and Aries definitely paved
I mean, that's
the way.
where you and I met, was Pluto-Uranus beginning 2012.
Yeah. And I was literally all about like breaking through to like
I think we both
develop
were.
ourselves. Yeah. And I mean, I'm
At the
just
same
so
time.
grateful. It's definitely something that's just going to stick out and for forever. And one thing you said about seeing it, but if you didn't do the work, it could go away or you can't reach it. It made me think that perhaps this also could be like showing you what you need to do to get it when they conjunct, like when the sun conjuncts Neptune and when Venus conjuncts Capricorn. Because I think last time Venus was back on that side, it was conjunct Jupiter, and so now they're opposing since they're
right.
And so
that's all the beginning of this 2020 energy, like that came in,
which is wild.
Yeah, with Saturn Pluto that was meeting, you know.
Yeah,
and so it's the opposition point now of like, did you see the last, well, now it's what, 9 months? Like, like, did you see this? It's like a baby being born or not.
Or not.
Yeah. And that's a little, I mean, I'm not trying to sound cryptic. It's just not or not. But then there's that other element I wanted to ask about this thing where I think it's kind of funny because the weekend of the character test is everything. It's almost like this is the trophy party, or you don't get a trophy kind of energy, kind of feeling like of how you made your choices. Because it's almost like Saturn's not going to play around with Venus. If Venus is like, no, I tried to skedaddle, like dealing with character issues with the square to Juno, the opposition to Pluto. And, Saturn's like, you're about to go square Mars. And Mars has been on the hanger with me the whole time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Back and forth.
And so, like, and Mars is more dominant than Venus being in Aries, right? So I think that this is a lot more for people to not just, I can wait till the full moon. I think you don't want to get to the full moon and feel like, well, finally there's something there for me to reach. And because a lot of the old books, especially Aleister Crowley's book about Neptune, and it was always that it's the outpost, it's the last planet that looks out at the universe, and it has to at that point because it's got its back to the sun, that it looks out to the universe, but it's so far away, or it's how there's all those stories of us trying to find the universal understanding of all these things, and we can go so far, but yet it's the Fool card. It's like, at the end of the day, are you just enjoying your life fully, and are you still just enjoying life? That we all are the fool. We all are the fool to think that we'll ever understand it all fully.
Yeah.
And I think that this is where we have to learn to have true joy in our life, and we have to learn to, especially in these times. I mean, with all this Capricorn, I think you can agree as an astrologer that this is a party poop times infinity energy.
Oh my God, yeah. It's almost as if like the spirit has like, given like all these deaths and celebrity deaths. It's like people don't even have the heart to fight as much. They're still they don't even have time to grieve. It's just all this like crazy stuff to process one after the other. And thankfully, when you realize this is the literal apocalypse and the end of our age into this next age, it gives you certain perspective, prepares you, and makes you make every moment count for sure.
Yeah, and there's something interesting with the South Node being at the galactic center that I feel that has been kind of overpassed a lot in the astrology talk. It's like, it's not about trying to go back to where we came from, it feels like. It's like this. I love Gemini in Cancer because it's more like, this is where we're headed, which is youthful and exciting, and the curiosity of what's next. And I feel that when you add that to the relationship aspects of Venus opposed Saturn, I mean, you cannot deny that this full moon is a full moon about relationships, right? With a Venus opposed Saturn, with a Venus
completion of an understanding too,
and all connected to Saturn, right? And the authority master of this, and the authority and the choices we're going to make in relationships forever. I mean, this is kind of that big thing. And then Mars retrograde square that's going to come in September and into October and November is definitely going to be like, okay, well, here, I gave you the ultimate gift here, September 1st of 2020, before a very harsh Mars retrograde. It's not a pretty one.
No. Which I like October, like you said, is going to be crazy. Like the rest of 2020, I just really feel it's going to
Yeah.
be exponential. But one thing that you said right now that was very key, how the Cancer and Gemini's youthful struck a chord with me, because the one thing that a lot of people are focusing now, it's like they just got awakened to now saving the children and focusing on the youth.
Or even racial issues. There's some people who just
Yeah.
denied that completely.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, but you got to be enthusiastic and try and progress that forward
Add
to
that
be
fire
and be
to
better
it.
about it and pay attention to it more.
Yeah.
Or even in the government, did you really just think the government was going to save the day? And it's like, right? Like, especially with Gemini North Node, it's been like, you really think that it's been more focused on the states or the governor or your mayor or your local government, which we always just in a ballot just kind of go, oh yeah, I don't know. I don't even know the people. I never even studied, right? Like whatever. I saw a
So
sign
true.
up on the, in the city when I was driving to fucking Burger King or something, like, okay, I saw that name, but now it's almost like I think that everybody's putting so much emphasis on if it's going to be Biden or Trump. I think it's like, what about your governor? What about like mayor stuff? But some of those elections aren't now, but some are. And for certain spots, or who's in the House, who's in the Senate.
Yeah.
These are things that are more Gemini, like, let's get actually more towards your local environment, your local city. That's what cities represent Gemini and countries represent Sag.
That's
And so
so
I think that
true.
people are too lost into travel right now in the big way. Like cars are what Gemini are about.
Yeah.
Walking and bicycles.
A lot more walking for sure. And
Right? Like, and it's like people are just thinking that travel's going to just turn. And even the airlines today just said, we ain't going to survive at all. None of us are.
Damn.
And it doesn't look like there's enough money to bail out the airlines and bail out all the people. At least in 2008, they could bail out the cars because they weren't having to bail out the people. They didn't bail out the people at all. They just bailed out like the systems of loaning. But now this is...
I didn't think the market was that bad, to be honest. That is just very ironic, considering the last time Uranus was in Taurus and now how this is, which once again just makes me wonder what this square is going to be with Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius.
Well, I just got some sort of crazy insight with this Venus opposition to Jupiter-Pluto. With Jupiter-Pluto is always the implosion of economies. Like Jupiter-Pluto of 2007 was what brought on the 2008, but Jupiter in Capricorn, fucking the hell of that recession.
Yeah.
Now here's Venus going to oppose Jupiter-Pluto for the first time in Capricorn for hundreds and hundreds of years. Wow. And so... it's almost like, because I've been trying to warn people about the kind of like the stock market, like Tesla's at over $2,000 a share, yet they're not selling cars right now. Why are they so high? Even a lot of, whether you watch CNBC or Fox Business or anything, everybody's like, it makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And those are the things that are making the markets look big. But if you were to look at 80% of the other stocks, they're all like haven't recovered, right? It's just these big major ones that have been doing so big that makes the points look high. It's the illusion that people aren't seeing that it's been gutted and only there's certain corps that actually just have been invested in heavily, but everything else has been gutted.
Damn.
That are holding up, right? That's Jupiter, Pluto, definitely in Capricorn,
Yeah.
And so I would think that market-wise, this is definitely a full moon that's going to change the whole perspective of the money markets. And that actually might even be this weekend or Friday. With the moon, if we go back to Friday here, it's pretty gnarly. Because if you see, it's the moon on top of Jupiter, Pluto, with Venus in opposition to that point. And there's definitely going to be, after Trump's speech on Thursday, about how the market reacts.
Yeah.
Right? So there's definitely, if you're in the marketplace, like you better, if you're at a high position right now, there's some stocks that are extremely high, higher than they ever have been before. And there's some that are just extremely low.
And that kind of, someone made comments about this NBA season, about how like it's unlike any other NBA season, and you have players who would never score high points, scoring points and
they're not even talking about them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Actually, tonight's interesting. The NBA chose not to play tonight for the shooting that happened in Wisconsin, and also in the. Soccer, I think it was tennis or soccer, and then also in the baseball tonight, 3 teams didn't play. the Lakers, I guess, are trying to boycott the rest of the playoffs, which would go with my prediction that LeBron James will never win a championship ever again based off his chart.
Dang. Okay. Wow. That actually, that makes sense. I mean,
I made that prediction in 2016, by the way.
2016.
Yeah, I said that he was done with winning championships.
It doesn't really. This one looks like anyone can win it, and like, see, he's already had his big 3 moment. So like,
And this is Mars squaring him hard with Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn.
yeah,
And Jupiter retrograde, it's not being, kind of.
that's deep.
He has Mars in Pisces, though. But, okay, so the market stuff, definitely, I think, I'm glad that you brought up that monetary aspect, too, which could definitely cause panic. If there was going to be panic, because if it is Venus, it's definitely going to be, I think, relationships in the personal life.
And there's a coin shortage still.
And there's a coin shortage. And then there's the panic of airlines, which I don't think I've been predicting this one for a long time, especially the South Node Sag, with Jupiter retrograde in Capricorn, the worst place. That travel is not going to get bailed out. Like, it's not going to get.
I didn't even know that like travel was suffering. That's I for some reason thought it was.
No, the
still
airlines
afloat.
are. You have to remember that the airlines already have downed a bunch of jets. I used to work in the Navy on jets, and if a plane goes over a certain amount of months, usually around 2 to 3, but that's military. So let's go to civilian. Let's extend it to 6, which it has been. You got to replace the motors. You don't just keep it. It's not like a car. You just don't go, oh, we'll fire it up, baby, because of the regulations from you have to understand that the fuel lines and the fuel can get corroded. And those jet engines are meant to always be turning on and to be working so that they are constantly known that they are running. They're meant to just run 24/7. Like, those planes are just, they've been downed. Now they're losing all the money. There's not as many travelers. And then there's fuel prices. And then there's not as many people traveling. And international travel is pretty much like not happening, where they make a lot of money off those $2,000 tickets in first class or $800 tickets in coach. None of that's happening. So they're losing $20 million a day. So, you get that. I think that this is going to bring the realization that people better start getting used to North Node Gemini of like,
Right.
you create, like here at the studios, like we just created our own world.
And people are just more like talking to neighbors and like.
Right, but
Well,
it's almost
despite
like
socially
this was
distancing.
necessary. Everybody was trying to escape
Right.
to a deserted island, and it's turning into Gilligan's Island that people are trying to go to,
Yeah.
really. When actually we're at Gilligan's Island, it's just in your city.
And it almost feels like it's the end of a chapter though, like it's the natural end of the markets and maybe something new, which would be crazier if this is planned in the sense where
Oh,
the
it
markets
was
are
all
being-
planned.
I mean, Capricorn's
Jupiter,
about strategy
Pluto
and
with
planning.
Saturn and Capricorn is
Yeah.
the hidden plan.
Yeah,
And then with Jupiter there, it's like the whatever you want, the wish is to not maybe reveal it.
oh, that's key.
Right? But also Jupiter at the same time is a truth ringer. But Jupiter's got the South Node there. So if you were a high entity that understood astrology and you wanted to hide something and a big plan that's been in action for a long time, you would choose Jupiter retrograde in Capricorn at this worst place with Saturn and Pluto in there with the South Node and Sag.
Yeah,
And with Mars in retrograde, that's going to not be as strong because Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto will come direct and square Mars retrograde.
I feel like I heard you talk about this before, like 2016 in Vegas or like a conference when you were talking about this Capricorn
rising through the
energy.
darkness. They said that
Right.
there was this was all
Like,
in
are you sure you wanna be
2017, I said
doing this?
Yeah, the concrete will be poured.
The concrete, yes.
And that it's been poured and it was planned to be poured. You don't stir concrete without planning that it's going to be stuck.
Yeah.
And so I think that this is really interesting that Venus has never opposed Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn in, if my calculations are correct, 760 years.
Damn.
760 years. And so, that's kind of hard to grasp. And then you think about this last thing I wanted to show you. I actually did not prepare you for this, but I thought I would run it anyway because I run Helio. So as we start the week, this is Saturn's nearing its end from the sun's point of view. Saturn's in Capricorn the whole time, but Saturn's getting ready to end in Capricorn, which is why this time feels so extreme. And what's interesting to me is Mars just passed over Neptune this last weekend of the 25th and 24th. So, I mean, to me, this weekend kind of felt like I had no idea where I'm going. Because to me, this is, with the sun at the center, what I learned from Michael Erlewine is the dharma of the universe, like the sun's point of view of things.
Oh, that's
shining on
Helio.
our reality. So it's Helio, right? So there's no retrogrades. So if you just were, and so like here, like,
So
good
that's
example,
Earth at 3 Pisces?
right? So like if we were to look at from the sun's point of view, right? So see how you see Venus, Mars, like Mercury. So you're going to see Mercury opposing Venus, right? Ready? Here's Mercury opposing, or it's kind of, it's not exact, but see how there's see the Venus, and then watch this. If I do this,
Yeah.
right? So there, let me go to the date. Hold on. Actual time. Here we go. Okay. So there's Mercury, there's Venus, like, and if I kind of turn it, see, like that, with the sun in the middle.
That's profound.
Right? See that? So that's kind of, if I were to make it exact, it would look more like that.
Yeah.
And so see, if I go to there, Mercury, Venus, right? With the sun at the center.
Mars next to Venus, yep.
So, and then so you're going to see Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, if I back it way out, right? So if I back it out, you're going to see, that's Uranus, right? So there's Aries, like, there's Neptune. And it's going to be from...
yeah, they are aligned, though.
Yeah, exactly. So there they are right there. So it's the sun's point of view, but I'm putting it in the tropical zodiac from the sun's point of view. So anyway, so Saturn's at the edge of Capricorn, and it's been there the whole time. And it hasn't been in Aquarius yet. And so that's why, if you think about Saturn coming in Aquarius and Geo, okay, we feel it a little bit, but we didn't feel it that much. Saturn's getting ready to come into Aquarius in Helio, where there's no retrograde. It will actually be there. And what's crazy about this week, talking about relationships. So here's tonight, as you and I are talking, or here's August 25th. I did it for some reason. So that was yesterday. Venus square Jupiter. Venus square Saturn this week. In this. Right?
Yeah.
So I did a chart for Friday when the energies of Venus is going to come into its home sign of Taurus.
For Saturday, okay.
Right, and or Friday when that's this whole character building kind of thing
Venus
coming,
Day.
And that's Venus coming off the squares. So it's like, know your value and your worth. Mars at 22 is going to be in awesome aspects here, and Mars is heading towards Aries when the retrograde will happen, right?
Yeah.
And Mercury is hanging out here in Libra all by itself. It has a whole other end of, so as the sun's here, all the planets, including Earth is right here at 5 Pisces, because from the sun's point of view at Earth, when we look at the sun, we're looking at Virgo at 5.
That makes a lot of sense as far as like Earth being in one big dream right now and really not knowing where to go.
Exactly. I mean, because what happens during this Mars retrograde coming up is Sun opposed Neptune. Like we forget, right? Like, so, and when you look at it from a sun's point of view, the Earth is going to go with Neptune, and Earth is going to catch up with Mars because Earth is faster than Mars. That's the Mars retrograde that comes on Earth's point of view, because Earth is faster than Mars. It's going to pass Mars.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of interesting to see this Venus-Uranus that's going to come this week after squaring the middle of the week. And this is the last chart, which is the full moon day, which is going to be Mercury square Jupiter, Mercury square Saturn, Venus, Uranus. And so the gift really will feel bad if Mercury square Saturn, and Saturn, look at this, 2956. It's about to leave fucking Capricorn. That's why I'm saying that this full moon is so much bigger than people realize. I just wanted to drop the big bomb at the end.
And then it is subtle. I think the subtlety of it is what's going to take people by surprise, because there's so much that's pressing, that's happening. And if you're not focused on being you and doing you, it could really go under your nose when you need to take action.
You have to. And even, it's funny, even though in Geo we're seeing Mars and Aries square Saturn, but in Helio we're seeing Mars sextile Jupiter, Mars sextile Saturn, Mars sextile Jupiter, almost in Pluto, right? It's like fucking do it. And it's the last days of Saturn and Capricorn through the whole transit through the sun's point of view from looking at the zodiac.
That makes more sense too. It feels
right?
like everything's
we're about to come into the big shift.
Yeah.
And it's going to be with the Mars retrograde, and it's going to be intense.
Which is okay. So while Mars is retrograding, it's not going to retrograde in the helio charts.
Never does, slow. Yeah. So like Mercury, it's so fast, right? In 1 week, Mercury went from 13 to 27. Mercury does about 24 or 4 degrees a day because it's 88 days around the sun.
88 days. Fuck yeah. Okay.
And then Venus, is that it's under 300. It's in that 260 range. So it's like that's the weirdness of Venus, and it jumps 2 degrees in helio.
Weird.
I did not, but
weird.
So, you have any last things to say here? I'm being on Deep Astrology for this end of this week for people.
I want to once again say every time I've been on this stage, it's been right before I'm ready to make like a major shift in my life, or like really, really step into the next level of like direction. So I'm just more excited than ever, because I know for me, I know for everyone, it's a culmination, it's a completion. You know what you must do, you know who you are, you know what you stand for. And I think some of the hugest testing period is coming, and I'm just more excited than ever to show what we've been working hard for and how far we've come.
Well, you've worked very hard. I mean, I've known you for 8.5 years now, and we know each other from Soul Garden, and I know our common friend and best friend, and
shout out to
Chris Witecki. He's never stopped.
Yeah, he's never stopped.
And he's what brought us together.
Yeah.
And ever since I've known you, you've never stopped.
Which is cool.
It's super cool. It's super cool that actually all the transits of then are making sense for now.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like people have to kind of take a look at the last 10 years of their life, especially since 2012, which 2012 is a big thing.
Yeah.
Just for the sense that on December 21st of 2020, we're going to see Jupiter-Saturn conjunct too. I mean, it's like, you can't make that up.
It's like full circle.
It's full circle. It's like, and again, the 8, right? 8 years exactly after that day, and Jupiter-Saturn together. It's that there's so much. I remember the magic around, well, you used to go by Magic Mike too.
Yeah.
But the magic around you and I when we met was that we were both, even though I did a reading for you, I gained confidence through me as a reader, and you gained confidence that you had what you already had. You already knew. It was like we both used each other in a positive way to give confidence to each other.
Yeah.
And today,
definitely activator.
8.5 years later, we're sitting together talking astrology.
Yeah.
And I feel that for people, it's important for them to look at the events of 2012 and the changes and the things that happened in relationships to your goals or whatever you felt with inside, because I feel like this week is about leaping into that fully if you haven't yet.
Like
or for people like maybe
portal.
like you or I, it's just about maintaining the character of that and trusting that the things that we want to see will come, opposed to feeling like maybe we have to keep chasing something that doesn't, but stay solid and secure in knowing, the path in many ways.
I would say, most importantly, even if you don't get the validation you are seeking, if Venus doesn't get the nurturing it wanted, and if Mars doesn't get the pride it was seeking, are you still going to stand by it, or are you going to compromise until you get it? That's the hugest test right there.
Yeah, that's a big one, I would say, because that's what a lot of people are feeling deep inside their hearts and their souls that I think are hurting through this whole process is, I mean, especially if those, maybe it's different for some people. Like, you're single, I'm single, we live like alone. So there's that whole like, you know, my friends that are in relationship or live with their significant others or whatever, it's like it's a different experience. But then they might also be like, man, it'd be nice to maybe be alone a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
Or, you know, right? Like, so there's a lot of, everybody's going through
a tug of war.
A tug of war and a feeling that is not fully feeling supported in many ways. Mm-hmm. And you can use the government, you can use because of not having your independence enough, especially Uranus and Taurus to me is very, you know, like, you got to try random shit to try and get the goodness, you know, like it's not, it's like, you know, Uranus and Taurus to me is a wrapper around a really bomb, delicious dessert that's very hard to get off, or a package that, you know, you don't have scissors for and you're trying to rip it. Everybody does that. I don't know anybody that, I mean, there's like maybe a Virgo, maybe a Virgo always has the scissors around and goes, right? You know, but that's what makes it frustrating during this time is like, there's these packages that we have that are coming in and here's Mars square Saturn trying to rip it open instead of like, you know what, maybe let me just like go get the scissors and cut this thing instead of like, you know.
Message right there.
I mean, it's very Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, like, you know, and all of his movies, especially reminds me of Total Recall. Go to Mars, you know, like go to Mars, like, you know, and that's actually the dream that he does. Total Recall is about implanting a dream into your brain that you already went through this vacation and experience, but you actually never went. But the brain believes it because they implanted that you did.
So it's like a memory inception.
There's a lot of implanting going on of how to accept this world, how to see this world right now.
How to remember things that never happened.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, and even the whole CV thing, we call it C19 for YouTube. But came with a Mercury retrograde and with Neptune around and with all, I mean, it was like,
no wonder.
I mean, it's a spell.
Yep. Everyone's in trance.
And anybody that tries to, you know, counteract that and doesn't want to use astrology, then that's fine. But using astrology, this is a spell.
Textbook.
It's textbook spell.
Yeah.
And totally then too many not enough info. North Node and Gemini, like, getting ready to square Neptune at the end of the year and the beginning of 2021. Boom. That's going to make people actually either panic about the reality that they don't know and understand because they fell for that spell. Or I went through that Neptune square my nodes. Sucked, but it was like I knew the truth, and it was a test of me knowing my intuition was right.
Yeah.
That astrology was real and that I was an astrologer and it would work. I had my girlfriend at the time, Erica, looked over at me in January of 2011, and we had just moved in together. And she looks at me and she goes, "So are you gonna like have a job or anything?" And I was like, "This might sound crazy, but my Jupiter's 5 Cap. I'm like, the Sun, Mercury, and Pluto are all meeting on my Jupiter. Something's gonna show up in my life today, actually, today." And she's like, "I don't believe." She really did not believe the astrology thing fully on.
Yeah.
I got an email that day from a huge investor to do an astrology infomercial. That was my job for all that whole year, and I got other jobs from that day. And it was the morning, and it was a Monday morning that she woke up, like a typical thing, like, "So we moved in together, like, you know, like, you gonna have like a full-time job? Like, are we gonna be secure? Like, you know, like, she was just got her job," and I'm like, "Oh, just astrology today is going to happen." You know, it might sound crazy, but the Sun, Mercury, and Pluto are all meeting on my Jupiter. And it did.
Wow.
And
the
so
day.
Right? Right. And so it's like you have to trust astrology 100.
100%. Yes.
You know?
That's been the most rewarding part about this because it's like the mastering of the craft that no one can take from you. And Uranus and Taurus have been so key for me because it's like owning this radical sense of your value where you feel like your net worth is infinite, or you just like monopolize or specialize this part of you that no one else can replicate. And so it's like you're building that value. And that to me is what, once again, like that 2012, 2015, where people are having to, you know, rely on stimulus checks or gain assistance. And it's because, and whereas people like us who've struck oil, there we go. It's like we struck oil. So it's like, whereas people who weren't authentic to what they're doing or kind of not knowing what to do. People like us.
But it was invisible oil.
Right. We
Okay,
didn't
it
even
wasn't
know.
like it was
Right.
seen. It was a feeling and intuition and knowing, and then continuing to turn lead into gold alchemy. Like it was like, no, that's not oil. It's like, that's like vinegar oil. It's like, no. Like, no, this is real oil. Like it's worth something. And you had to, you know, put out a video all the time and every day and talk about this stuff. And we were dealing with people that thought we were crazy.
Yeah.
Like we were actually there's a picture of you and I in Hollywood in 2014, and I took you. Remember when I lived in Hollywood? I took you by pad, and then we walked to a premiere of some movie. I forgot what it was, but I remember I was thinking, I'm like, you know, I think when we looked at each other, it's like one day the astrology people are gonna get the astrology thing more, you know, that it will be more widespread. And I remember like looking at the movie premiere, and I think you and I looked at it in that world kind of like, yeah, this world ain't going to be like this no more. That's not going to be the cool shit no more.
Yeah.
And here it is. Astrology is becoming cool. Yeah. And I'm proud that you've made a big part of that as being just your own on the Peace Dealer. It's been a blessing to always have you on High Vibe and Future Life, but just as you and I as friends and doing astrology has been a blessing, and I just appreciate it very much. And I don't think that everybody knows that. You and I came from the same spiritual place and together rose in our own ways, and
which I really appreciate, because there's a lot of people who have tried to like get in between us two, at least on my end, like just people saying certain things, and it's ironic because like given the relationships that have like lasted, this has been like super solid. And it's just like
and the same things happen with me and Wateki too. People have tried to get between me and Wateki a bunch, you know, but him and I have always been super solid.
That's what's up.
And I'll be honest, shout out to all the soul gardeners out there. Like there's so many we're all still solid with, you know. Yeah. And you know, there was actually, I think it was who was it? Dennis, but I forgot who it was, but somebody had done a past life regression that all the people at Soul Garden, we all were on the Titanic and all died in the Titanic.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it was like also the feeling like of when Soul Garden shifted. But what's ironic is Soul Garden built all, like we have to give lots of love to Chris of how many light workers he really did. Yeah. Create at a time when nobody was talking about this stuff, and we all lit up from that place and changed all of our lives.
Mm-hmm. That's in a very quick, short 2 years too.
It was it's super karmic, and it was Jupiter Aquarius. Like when I was in it, and then I think you came on Jupiter Pisces.
Jupiter Pisces, Jupiter Aries. Yeah.
But it was for me. Yeah, this is my return to that coming up.
Wow.
So, which is kind of weird that I'm now, you know, the High Vibe is like a soul garden or whatever.
That's awesome.
Right?
Yeah. What a return.
Yeah. So, well, I appreciate you being on, and everybody, thanks for watching us tonight. Make sure you follow the Peace Dealer. He's at the Peace Dealer. He's on Instagram. He's got an amazing YouTube, and he's got amazing Instagram too. And then on Facebook, he's the Peace Dealer. And of course, you know, he's catched a bunch of his stuff on highvibe.tv. And then of course, I don't know, there's so many places where
I mean,
you and I have crossed our stuff everywhere, you know?
Yeah.
So
I'm finishing my Saturn return, so I'm definitely ready to contribute more new exclusive content coming soon.
Yeah, that's why you're actually here. It's like we're here to talk about the future of what we're going to be doing next. Got to rattle the cages, bring some more crazy astrology out there. So hope you all enjoyed it today, and I hope you all really enjoyed as much as I do always the Peace Dealer being on with us. So make sure that you subscribe to highvibe.tv to get my daily video horoscopes and my weekly horoscopes and so much more. And of course, you can get Battle of the Gods, which is my 4-hour plus horoscope about this whole battle, which we just were talking about and showing you. And as like we just covered in this week's horoscope, this is definitely you know, some sort of major ending, I would say. Especially Pisces full moon is the end, and then the full moon in Aries with a Mars retrograde will be this random weird feeling of plunking into a new beginning. That would be pretty crazy. But gonna be a wild time. And, when it comes to love out there, know your worth, know your value, know what you really are, and don't play games with that no more. And especially speaking to those in relationships that have just held on to be feeling safe when really the safety is in your true self. So sending you all lots of love, and I hope you have a wonderful week and that you pass the test.
You got this.
Boom.